First of all, hey, thanks so much for the College in New Jersey for putting this on and inviting us, and to Karen Johnson, who specifically talked to us and so on. And we're also for all the work that's been going on, we're very appreciative to our mayor, our chair of the Environmental Commission, who have been very helpful, and the members of the different borough organizations, including the staff, who just are so helpful. And especially, I have to say, the volunteers. They're like gold dust for people who put in their time and effort on things. So this is fantastic. So basically, this is the first presentation and there are two further ones following this one. So basically, we're talking about a small community and what we can do to make an impact environmentally. I run a nonprofit called Candide's Garden and Friends, but we'll get to that. Okay. So here's Lake Como. It's not the Lake Como in Italy. It's in New Jersey. It's about 50 on the shore, 50 miles south of New York, and it's a pretty small. It's a quarter of a mile square. It's landlocked. There's a lake on our south border, and we don't have the money to spend our way out of problems. We have to do things pretty economically. And there are 1,000 houses, and our population is 1,800 in the winter, but in the summer it swells to 5,000. Now, here's the thing: there are 5 organizations which are working together to create this change. First of all, down here's Candide's Garden, which I'll get to. There's the Environmental Commission. Monmouth University is involved. Health for Youth is a nonprofit based up in Staten Island, and the Williamsburg High School for Architecture and Design, which is doing all of our design work. So those are the organizations that are involved in this effort. So welcome to Lake Como. Now, to start out, I'll start out with Candide's Garden. Okay, now Candide, the name, everybody asks me, why Candide? Well, Candide was the hero of a short novel by Voltaire, a paragon of the Enlightenment. And there are many adventures, but it finally ends up with Candide saying, this isn't the best of all possible worlds. I'm going to tend my own garden. And that's the name for Candide's Garden. And up here, you can see Voltaire lifting the power lines to give us a better view of Candide's Garden. And this drawing basically captures, there's a visual explanation of Candide's Garden. It's not just a landscape and so on. There are 5 layers to it. The first layer is what we traditionally think of as a garden, landscape and garden with a variety of different ecologies and plant types and garden types and so on. And that's the first one, which most recognizable. But the second one is every yard butts up against a street somehow. Okay, and so anything we do in our yards, we have to take account of what the community requirement, and that is, for instance, you need to have a 5-foot by 7-foot corridor for people to walk. Okay, you can't plant in there. Okay, but you can do things over it and either side of it and so on. You have to have sight lines across the corner and so on. So we have projects which show how to make the most of that. There's a third thing, which is covering ground, how people cover the ground, whether it's pervious or impervious and so on. The fourth is kind of fun, which is what we call sustainable operations. And that is not just composting, but making sure that everything that nature produces is brought back into the garden. And the only things that leave the garden are weeds that are in seed and diseased plants. Okay, and then the last, of course, is very important, is the soil. The soil We respect what the soil gives you. It gives structure to trees, and you make the minimum amendments to the soil so that what's living down there, you don't destroy what the life that's in the soil. Now, this drawing came about because one of my students, when I taught at Rhode Island School of Design, created created this drawing. I went up to visit him a few years ago, well, 3 years ago, and told him about Candide's garden. And he said, "John, I'll do you a drawing." And 6 months later, he teased it out of me what this garden was really about. And it's basically a visual explanation of the garden. Okay? Now, how do we use the garden? We educate a bunch of different people in environmentally beneficial landscaping and gardening. We have tours and all sorts of things like that. It also serves as a model for our projects, and we'll come back to that. Okay, and it's a hub for facilitating the efforts of the volunteers. Okay, and we did get a little recognition in that the environmental getting an environmental achievement award a couple of years ago. So anyway, that's Candide's garden. I'll give you a little flavor here. Here's some of the different beds. There's a shore border which has just shore plants. There's a woodland border. There's a berry border where kids come along and they can pick the 10 different kinds of berries. And of course, there are vegetables, herbs, and blooms in the different beds, all teaching beds, you see. Now, there's a couple of interesting things that go beyond just the garden, and that is dealing with the cover, how we cover the ground. And this here is our no-mow lawn. It's grass, which you do not have to mow. It's a mixture of fine fescues, native fescues. And here, this is the driveway, and it has a 50% pervious lawn grid. And growing in it is the no-mow lawn. Okay, you don't have to put pesticides on it, don't have to water it, and you don't dare fertilize it because you just encourage it to grow, you see. And the beauty, one of the nice things that we learned is that when you don't have to mow, people like to put daffodils and tulips in their lawns and so on. The problem is, while they're growing and then while they're waiting for the leaves to turn brown, your lawn is your grass is growing and you can't mow, and it becomes unsightly. With a no-mow lawn, you don't have to do anything because it stays low. And there's the flowers just sitting there. So it's a very, very nice thing. The other one is in some places where the ordinance says that you have to have concrete in your sidewalks. Okay, well, okay, let's do pervious concrete where the water will go through it. Okay, and then it doesn't go into the gutters, the sewers, and then eventually into the lake. And here's the Rutgers landscape architecture students. We needed to replace a section of the sidewalk, and they did that. And it's fiendishly simple. All you do is leave out the sand and make concrete the regular way, and it's just almost as strong as regular concrete. Don't use it for a road, but for parking lots, driveways, sidewalks, and stuff, it's fantastic. So we're promoting that through the town now. We have kids come, okay, and this is Heather Butts, who will be speaking next, and she brings underserved kids from the north side of Staten Island, from the projects, and she runs a nonprofit with lots of gardens which learn from Candide's garden to kind of keep kids out of gangs through gardening, okay, and then we donate plants to them. And so on. So that's Candide's garden. So how does Candide's garden fit into this overall effect? Okay, so in summer the town swells, okay, to 5,000 people. Okay, and it's basically one of the mayors said it's a shore town with all the problems and none of the advantages. We don't have beach badges. We don't have the ocean. We don't have a marina. And a big Main Street, anything like that. But and so, but we do have some problems, okay? And here's Lake, oh, here's Lake Como. Here it is, quarter of a mile square, and there's the lake. The first thing that we have to deal with is that there are two streets that are basically raceways between the Garden State Parkway and the beach. So we have to deal with speeding and muscle mufflers and things like that, okay? The next thing is there are two party zones. The town is bracketed by two party zones, okay? And they're famous for people up north coming down for a great weekend. The only thing is that in between you get this raucous promenade, and I have Bugs Bunny cutouts in my hedge and things like that, and a lot of litter and so on. So I need to deal with these problems. And one of the things is, where's a sense of place? The hometown or village. There's a nice little community here, but where is it? Okay, we want to emphasize that. But as I say, there's gold in them Nar Hills, because those youngsters who are coming down for a good time and stuff like that, they're going to do what they're going to do, and then they're going to look for a place to live with their family. And if they know that Lake Como was a nice place, they remember it, they might come back, and that might help us with a succession thing with our aging population. You see, so there's an opportunity there. So what do? Our vision is to move from a barely noticed pass-through to a distinctive destination. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. Now, how we go about doing it is we want to create a village-type atmosphere with an environmental theme. The environment is the thing. So we're on the right side of the tide coming in on that. So those two go together. So the first thing is, Candide's Garden was opened in 2017, and it's our first environmental destination. Okay, people come to Lake Como to see Candide's Garden. The next thing is to create 5 more environmental destinations in 5 years. Okay, so people want to be attracted to here for the right reasons, you see. And so the first one is the Lakefront and Fun and Wildlife Park, and Mr. Rodriguez will describe that in more detail. There's the Main Street Arboretum, not just street trees and monoculture, but an arboretum which people can learn from. And then we connect the two, bit of urban planning here, by the pathway to the lake, where we civilize this street and beautify this nice little boulevard here, okay? And then there's a stormwater management project, and then we create a patchwork for wildlife, where we create environmentally friendly areas, but in individual yards, not in public property. So there's what we're aiming to do, and there's what these 5 groups of people are working on. Here's the Lakefront Fun and Wildlife Park. Williamsburg kids came down. They had a competition, and we had a blue ribbon panel and picked the winner. And here's they'll be putting in a living shoreline here rather than concrete and stuff like that. There's the plan, and so on. And the nice thing is, it's being implemented. The town got an open space $200,000 matching grant, and they're about to go out to bid on this. So this is the first one, okay? Well, after Candide's Garden. So the Arboretum, we're talking about street trees, not sycamores and maples and stuff like that, which gets so big and so on, but but there are 3 things about them. First of all, the geometry. These are the principles, okay? The geometry, they have to stay below the power lines, and they have to fit within any planting area you have. The second is they have to be native and attract wildlife and pollinators, and there has to be diversity, okay? Not monoculture. And this is the kind of thing we can get, which you have a variety of different blooms in the spring and a longer bloom time, not 2 weeks and done thing, see? And in the fall, the same thing, okay? More variety and something of interest. And trees are basically low cost and high impact. We're not talking about development here. We're talking about trees. So then if we look at some tests we're doing, okay? For currently, here's what happens. You've all seen this, okay? The utilities people want to keep 5 feet away from their utilities line with good reason, okay? And so you get this kind of wishbone pruning. So what we're doing is we're promoting the idea of pollarding. Now, this is a European technique in England and or about Europe, where you prune, cut the tree back every 3 years, and you prune it. And when it grows, it keeps the shape of the tree, but it stays low. And that's what we're using. And we've got 5 years of experience with that. And it seems to work pretty well. New trees. Well, first of all, they want to be native, okay? Second of all, we looked at the length of cars, okay? And said the distance that you want to plant these trees along the street, 12 to 15 feet. And it helps discipline parking. So you have places where you have a space for 3 cars, people get sloppy and you get 2 cars. Well, if the tree's there, you get 3 cars, okay? And then the right size, when they're full size, they stay below the power lines. These are understory trees, not big shade trees. And we're testing all these things in Candide's garden. Now, the next one is to join up those 2 things with the pathway to the lake. Here's 18th Avenue, that street right there. You see, it's not too distinct to visit, and it's a bit of a raceway. Okay, and here's the other one. Parkway has a lot of opportunity. There's a median down the middle of it, and we've already planted 10 trees in there to help start the landscaping plan for it. Okay, and this is one where we depend a lot on local participation. And what the idea of it is first of all to remediate chronic problems such as speeding, excessive vehicle noise, littering, and unruly weekend behavior, and then enhance the quality of life along the route with planting, signage, and amenities. And the Williamsburg kids are just finishing this. They'll be presenting this on their final design to the council on April 5th. And they've done this all online, which is phenomenal. And we've taken a lot of pictures for them. They use Google Maps and stuff like that. And where they get their information, this is important, because what's interesting about this is that they're in sustainable Jersey. There is this complete streets concept where streets are not just totally prioritized for cars and throughput of vehicles. There's the people, pedestrians, bicycles, and the environment are prioritized as much as for cars. So it's a different way of looking at streets, and that's the coming thing with street design, and that's what we're aiming. That's what we're doing with this. Okay. Then this is a small one. Okay, it's just basically a demonstration project to show how we can reduce the volume and toxicity of stormwater which goes into our lake. There are 13 outflow pipes from stormwater into the lake, and you get nitrogen and the toxic chemicals, all that going into the lake, killing the lake. So at the Borough Hall, you stand here. You can see down there. You stand here when it's raining hard. You're in running water. Okay, and the problem is that there was a curb barrier here, keeping it away from a native plant garden which you planted. We put in a bicycle rack, but with waffle pavers, which could soak up the water. So so there's a lot of water going into the storm drain. So what we've done is the DPW cut slots in this to get the water through. We put in a rain garden, okay, which captures the water and cleanses it with all native plants, and of course the bicycle rack. And we're just we'll be putting in a diverting 2-inch high berm to have the water get to either side. So you have less water going into the storm drains and more of it going into the earth and being sanitized or whatever. So the patchwork for wildlife, okay? This I love this project. The idea is to mobilize residents to create an extensive environmental landscape, including habitat and food for wildlife and pollinators, but 1 yard at a time, all on private property. And if we do parts of 100 yards, 20 by 20, we'll have the equivalent of an acre of eco-friendly land. Now, why is this important? Lake Como is totally built out. We can't create a park, you know, because there's all houses there, but we can create a park in pieces, a patchwork of it on private land. And here's how we're going about it. First of all, we've looked at all the different ways people cover ground, okay? And we're awarding certificates of appreciation for people who do something, okay? We're creating an incentive program with native plant nurseries and landscapers. And then we will be displaying the results on a GIS map, and we use Candide's garden as a source of action. Now I'll go into that a little more closely. Here's the drawing I showed you, okay? But those layers can be expanded and then text added to them with all the things you can do in that layer, okay? And if you add all the, and each of those is a handout, and if you add up all those things, you get about 80 things a homeowner can do to improve their land. So they're not stuck for a choice of something to do. There's always something to do. And this is a tri-fold leaflet, and on the back is that whole list of 80 things. Now here's the problem. How are we going to evaluate 1,000 yards with related to 80 different things that you can do? Well, you just don't even try, okay? Here's what we do. You get something really simple. And the thing is, we say there's 3 levels, okay? The first level is the entry level, where you do 1 and maybe 2 things in the yard, okay? Don't concrete in your whole driveway. Plant a tree, plant a little garden, even a planter if it's on concrete, and put a native plant on. And of course, use a rain barrel and so on. If you do 1 or 2 things, you get a smaller certificate, an entry level. At the top, we go for the fabulous yards, okay? And we chose 3 absolutely stunning yards. And in order to take design out of the equation, after all, nature doesn't look at your yard as a design problem. It looks at it as a nature problem, okay? It doesn't respect property boundaries or anything like that. So we said we chose one which is a fabulous yard. It has a rain garden. They grow chickens for fertilizer and eggs. They have habitat for bees and birds and all sorts of stuff. But within a formal setting, because this fella, his mom lives there as well, and she wants a formal setting. He wants the environmental garden, and we came out with an environmental garden in a formal setting. So there's no problem with having a formal setting and doing good things for the environment. We have one which is an informal setting, and one which is very interesting, which, if you imagine the woods, okay, and in the woods everything is taken care of. You don't have to fertilize the woods, okay, and so on, right? And if you imagine you take out a lot-sized area in the woods, keep it the woods, and then that's your yard, and then you just put a house on it and have just minimum way for people to get to the house and areas that they need, and all the rest is as au naturel, okay? That's that. So you can have a formal garden or an informal garden or a completely natural garden and have a similar level of environmental benefit, okay? So those are the best. Now in Lake Como, then we have a giant middle class, okay? And these are all ones which do more than 1 or 2 things, but do a lot. And here's a pump station where there's the lawn grid, the same one that we use in Candide's garden. Here's holly this is a hedge. It's not boxwood or anything like that. It's inkberry, it's called, and that's a native hedge, which is a great substitute for boxwoods. Then they have native plants down there, and so on. So, and you can, there's the certificates, and we make it simple enough so that people can say, oh, my yard is like that, or like that, or like that, and you can almost self-certify. And we've given out over 50 certificates so far. Here's an example of one. These are all the driveways that they didn't concrete in the whole driveway, and we give out these entry-level certificates like confetti. Okay, it gets people on the board. Okay, and so all those got entry-level certificates, and maybe they'll go on to something else. Okay, here's a example of the beneficial. Two examples of the beneficial level. They in some ways they don't quite make it up to the top. This has a fair amount of impervious surface and not as many native plants as we'd like. We aim for 70–80% native plants, and this one here has a minimal yard, which is fantastic, and so on. Not as many native plants, but it does have trees. Okay, and then here's one of the newer distinctive certificates, which there is no yard. They've taken away all impervious surface they could, and it's like 90% native plants. That beautiful tree there is a beach plum, okay? And you also get little plums off it as well. Now, looking at where are we? How much can we do, and so on, okay? I'll just skip to the bottom here. We gave out on one road, we gave out all the possible certificates we could, and we assigned an area. You know, you have a little yard, garden, which is 20 feet by 4 feet. Okay, that's 80 square feet, and so on, and the area. And we added all that up, and we got the certificates area of about 10,000 square feet. All right, just a second. You shouldn't see that. And then we used Google Maps, and we calculated the total area all along that street, and the gross area, including the houses, about 140,000 square feet. Take out the houses, and that's what I did here. You see how you take out the houses? You get 88,000 square feet, which means that you divide one into the other. The environmentally beneficial area along that street is just under 12%. And that is the magnitude of the challenge that we face in the suburban setting. Okay, so how do we go on and create more? What we're doing is we're embedding this into the standard procedures for the borough. And this was a trial we did. We're going on to do some others, but this is a nice example where the liquor store in a residential zone is doing a very sensitive renovation of the liquor store, and it just improving it, making it nicer. They're good, but they've got impervious surface and turf grass. They're right next to houses, you see, and on this side too, it's all turf grass. So what we did as part of their application, we advised them that they could have like a buffer between them and the between the commercial area and the residential area on both sides. Some smaller trees and shrubs, maybe put in no-mow lawn and lawn grid. Well, maybe if we're lucky, we'll see. You know, we'll see what we can get. And then the streetscape, some shrubs and perennials. Very simple, okay? But this made the point. And so what happens is for the patchwork for wildlife, they get a certificate. A commercial establishment getting a certificate for being environmentally beneficial. The pathway to the lake, it's helping to enhance the streetscape. And so next we're going to go after the liquor licenses and the mercantile licenses and see if we can get some improvements there. So the last last thing is we looked at all the different ways people cover ground, and we can give this out to people so people take their choice. You know, how much do you want to improve the environment? You see, from all the way down the bottom, impervious, organic, which is like concrete, sidewalk, whatever, or a completely natural area and all the things in between. There's turf grass and so on. Okay. Now, our last presentation is by Jeff Foad, and he's going to show how they use aerial photography and stuff like that to analyze this. They have done a surfaces analysis project where they looked at the area of concrete and asphalt, grass, and trees, and so we know how much we have and we know how much we got to do. Okay. And the other thing is the GIS. Now, we haven't done this yet. We have the map, which Jeff will tell you about, but we're looking at putting this application onto it, where, say, if people have an entry level thing, they get a dot, and if they have a beneficial level, we color it in, and if they have a distinctive level, they get a star. And this is on the Borough. The background for this is on the Borough website already as an online map. So we'll be adding this, and so then what you can do is you hit one, and you can get the property, okay, or you can get other things, like you can get the amount, the text about it. Now, the thing that we're hoping for here is, if, say, you live between these two properties here, and you see this map, you say, well, maybe I could do something. It could be some sort of encouragement to other people, you see? So what do we expect out of this last project? Well, improving the stormwater, reducing the amount of stormwater and the toxicity of it going into the lake, making things good for wildlife and pollinators, improving the aesthetics. We'll have the community involved, and big time. And then these last things, which is having planning and evaluation tools. So we don't just build something and walk away from it. We're able to see how we're doing, and then come back and see how we did, see if we made a difference. And of course, then this becomes another environmental destination. So basically, our vision, just to recap, is that we live along what I call flyways. There's a lot of migration here of ducks and geese and butterflies and all sorts of things, and birds and whatever. And we're right in that path. So we can do a little bit to help that along as well. And finally, we see Candide's Garden as an environmental menu for Lake Como. Okay. And secondly, we see Lake Como getting there, okay, mobilizing our town as a distinctive destination and an environmental menu for coastal communities. And that's basically it. The next speakers, Heather and Abe, will be talking about the dealing with the youth and public health, and with the design of those two projects and the educational implications. And the last talk will be about the GIS and the drone technology and so on, how that's helping us with manage information and manage our projects. So that's it. I don't know where I am for time. I'm sure I have gone over 12 o'clock. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself and just say them, or you can put them in the chat. Either is fine. But I just want to start by saying thanks so much, John. This talk's going to be really interesting, and I can't wait to hear more about this project that is going to be talked about in the next two talks.
Okay. Don't hear anything? Oh, working with it. I just saw one question on chat, working with the town. Yes, that's what a question. yeah. At the beginning of my slideshow, there is some of the elements of the town that we're working with. The very important. They're all very important. First of all is the mayor and council, because they get the decisions, and they help with the publicity and things like that. We haven't made much inroads with the tourism commission, but that's going to come. But the staff are fantastic. The administrators, I walk into the borough hall and they say, John, what can we do for you? How can we help you? You know, where do you get that, right? And the DPW, they do a lot of the tree planting and work with us. They're environmentalists. We are very, very lucky for having them. It's just small. There's only 4 of them, you see, but they're all really, really good. Then the zoning officer is an architect, and he is an environmentalist. So he is great. He's the one who gives you advice on, well, can we really do that pervious concrete? You know, he says, yeah, it's concrete. He's saying, so we got permission to do that for him. And of course, the planning board, who now we're working with seriously on, and the head of the planning board is very interested in pervious and impervious surfaces and improving that situation. So we're very lucky in that regard. And of course, it's going to be staff changeover and so on. But we make sure we brief the new people in, and so on. And so that's the one aspect of the town, and we're very lucky, okay, with that. The other aspect is the volunteers. We keep a database of volunteers, how they come at this, what they're interested in, and emails. So we have a good list, and in it we discriminate between people who just want to be kept up to date and people who want to volunteer. Okay, so and of course you have like your core volunteers. You can call them up and stuff happens, you know. And then there are others who we reach out to and also do things on occasion and stuff like that. So and that's one thing. The volunteers helped out enormously with the lakefront project. They provided feedback on it. They're helping out. One person is starting out to do evaluating yards and so on. So all these projects are going on at the same time. It's not simple, but the volunteers are all spread all through this. And of course, the Environmental Commission, who one of our members, a newer members, and my goodness, where did she land from? Because she basically, her day job is as a project manager. Oh my God. So anyway, she's gotten things done in very short time. So there's the borough and the volunteers. And then I already mentioned the other, you know, the organizations which are working with us. The Williamsburg, they're fantastic, and the Health for Youth and so on. And the point I would make there is that there's no charge for that. We're getting our designs for free. Okay, now they're not shovel ready. They're ideas and they're master plans from which the borough can take off from there. Okay, so we're moving on to that median on that parkway that I showed you. Right, the thing they're doing now is a landscaping plan for the median. So that's you know, that's how it all fits together. And yeah, so yeah, we've been working on this for a while. So, and it takes time to build this up. We did a lot of pump priming. I showed you the bicycle rack, you know, with the waffle pavers. That was our first project 8 years ago. Okay, and that was and that was sort of like putting a flag down and saying, okay, that's where we're going. And we did a lot of individual projects before, and people got involved more and more, and the whole thing has grown. So it didn't show up out of it didn't come out of nowhere. No. So and then at one point we said, oh my God, there's a vision here, and then it came together, and now it's just working it out. Okay. Any other questions? Is that pretty well covered? That was a phenomenal question, because it gets at the heart of things. Is the involvement. Like, and it's amazing how important that is. You can't do it without all those people, at least with most of them. Anyway, anything else? So if anybody wants to be in touch, you have my email address there, and we're willing to work with any other towns and share our experiences. Look, there's a lot of failure here, okay? And there's a lot of good things, but there's a lot of things where we found that things don't work. Some things don't grow, they don't like it, and so on. And I planted Bradford pears before, you know, the invasive trees before I knew anything, you see, and so on. So we can share information. We're happy to help anybody out and learn from anybody else as well. Okay, I don't. Oh, one second. Oh, there's another one here. Oh, the challenges to engaging younger people in this type of work. Well, in my role, I don't do that. They come to me. They're brought to Candide's garden. Okay, we do. Oh, wait a minute. No, we do. We have kids come from the local schools and do community work. And what you need is a teacher. Okay, somebody who believes in this stuff, wants these kids to learn about the environment, and then they make it happen. So a couple of local schools have helped us out on occasion, and if the kids are excited about it, I mean, the thing is, let me give you an example. When Heather brought the kids from Staten Island down, I showed her. I asked the kids, what color is a tomato? And they said, oh yeah, they all knew the answer. I didn't know the answer to some of the other things. What color is a tomato? I said, oh yeah. So then I pointed them to that table over there where Heather had a demonstration of yellow tomatoes, and they were all eating yellow tomatoes. Okay. And then they said, and I said, what, look over there. What's that? Oh, that's asparagus. It's that long, you see. Well, let's cut it. And we cut the asparagus, and you said, you know, you can eat that. I said, what? Eat asparagus raw? So we picked the asparagus, and they all got asparagus, and they were eating raw asparagus, you see. So the engagement came from a good teacher, and then getting to the garden and seeing this stuff. But I think more important is what's going to happen with the next two chats, because there's the experts dealing with kids, and they've got techniques that will blow your mind as far as how these kids have doing so much for Lake Como, both at the high school level and at the university level. So and I'm just you know, thank my lucky stars that these teachers are making this stuff happen, and these kids are great. One kid got on the back of the Lakefront project, he got a $20,000 scholarship from the American Institute of Architects to attend Howard University. He's a sophomore there now. So that's fantastic. You know, you can do this for the kids, but the teachers are the ones who are doing it. Here's another one from SF. What do you think about the current research about trees talking to each other and feeding each other, especially parent and child trees? This might have a bearing on street trees and multi versus monocultures. Oh my goodness, I can't believe the questions I'm getting. This is fantastic. The thing is, the specific thing you're asking, I don't know that much about, okay? But I do know that when you plant native trees, you hear, and native anything, they do go forth and multiply. They love it where you plant because they're used to the thing, okay? That's the first thing. But the thing about trees supporting each other, I do know, is that we have a lot of trees. One of the problems is with trees being in a park, okay, with a lawn, okay. The lawn is not as pervious as you think. It actually starves the trees from getting the water to its roots, because by the successive cutting means that the roots become very, very dense and shallow, and the watering can make it very shallow, and the tree doesn't have as deep roots, and it's more vulnerable, both from a water standpoint. And in the woods, the roots grow together, with the trees are closer together, and they support each other. So that's one of the things. Now, we do know about monoculture. The monoculture, you're not going to see monoculture in the woods unless it's some invasive trees that have gotten too far. And so I don't know is the answer, but I can say that the diversity is so important, because the variety of different bees that there are and their specific requirements. Some are generalists, some are specific, and the variety of different bees means that it's very difficult to put in a plant for one kind of bee and so on. There's a lot of work to that. As bad as figuring out what good wines are, you know, it's about that complicated. And so what the best thing you can do is to put a diverse set of plants, which you can, which by coincidence and whatever, you cover most of it, okay? And that's really about the best we can do as homeowners, unless we really want to go into it. So I don't know. I do know of some examples, like where in Africa, a deer or an antelope eats a tree, and all the rest of the trees go nuts. But I really I can't really answer that. But I can say, really, with the street trees, it's difficult to have parent-child trees too much, because you need trees roughly the same size. That's what you have. But at least if they're native and you got a lot of different ones, you're covering the environment much better than you have with monoculture. So I'm sorry that I don't have the exact answer to your question, and maybe we could figure it out. But it's a very intriguing question. Anything else?
So we have a little over 5 minutes left, so maybe like one or two more if they come up.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, there's a lot to this. The thing about I'll ask my own question, okay? Because look at leaves, okay, in the garden, and what we do is, if they say leave the leaves in your garden beds, leave the leaves, because they turn into mulch and eventually turn into really nutritious soil. Well, what if there's areas where you don't want to leave the leaves? A lot of people don't like oak leaves on their lawn, okay? Well, what we do is, a leaf blower. Well, what people don't realize is most leaf blowers also act as vacuums. And you can vacuum up leaves, and that goes into a bag, chopped up, and it puts in the most wonderful leaf mold mulch that you can have. And you can do that and put that down in areas where you want to have mulch, and it's free, let's say. And so that's a very useful technique. You just turn a little knob on it and it becomes a leaf vacuum. And so we use that around, and so then you're not putting the leaves out into the onto the street. And where DPW picks it up, they take it somewhere, and you know, and then they figure out what to do with it from there. And the same thing with pruning, because we've got a lot of trees. We have 52 trees in the yard, and a number of them need to be pruned, like the orchard trees. And the problem is when you prune, the nutrients are in the growing tips of the tree. Okay, so what do we do when we prune? We cut off the nutrients. Okay, and then what do? We put it out in the sidewalk, and that gets taken away and ground up. And fortunately, our people ground it up as mulch, and then send it to places. But if you grind up your own prunings, then you have the most nutritious mulch that you can get, and then that you reinvest that back into the yard, and it saves you buying mulch at, I don't know, what is it, $5, $7, I don't know how much it costs anymore because I don't buy it, dollars a bag, you see. And the only two artificial areas where you do have to replenish are, of course, the vegetable bed, which you have to think of as an industrial process. It's not, you can't plant it and forget it. You have to you take the nutrients out and eat the vegetables, and then you have to put the nutrients back in. So and not very few of the vegetables are native. So that's an industrial process, but we need it. And the same is with the orchard. Most orchard trees are from Persia. Okay, and you have to deal with you know, with the bugs and the disease and so on. You have to prune them so you get the right size fruit and all that, and you have to fertilize. So those two are I hate to use the word artificial, but they're not like the other beds where you plant the stuff, and because it's all native things like the pollinator bed, they just grow and they love it. Those are the two which are very you have to put in amendments. It's another chat. Oh, more information about pollinating trees. Yes, you can Google it, but if you go to the UFAS in Florida, the University of Florida, they have a fact sheet on pollinating trees. The problem is there's a confusion in this country about the difference between topping trees and pollinating trees. Topping trees is no good, where you just take off the top, and then because you stimulate the branches, it produces a whole lot more branches, and you're almost creating a high level hedge. This isn't topping. This is very different process, and you basically are creating these knobs from which the things grow. The other way is just get in touch. We'll send you information on pollinating, because we've got a pilot project which we're doing now. Okay, so and it works. Those pollinated trees, pollinated tree I showed you is a line of, I hesitate to mention it, Bradford pears, which are invasive and they break, and I planted them before I knew anything, and so it's our way of keeping them below the power lines. And because you prune them every 3 years, they don't have time to create the little pears that the birds eat and then distribute all through the woods. So it's a nice way of dealing with an invasive tree as well, by keeping it as almost sterile. Yeah, so please, yeah, just get in touch. It's okay. This is or you can go to England and see it if you got the money.